So thanks everyone for joining us tonight for the April 14th redistricting meeting for the city of Everett. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with our usual roll call, and then we'll go into some comments that I have, and then nominations for chair. So I'm excited. We're finally get to the point where we're really going to get rolling here for the next few months. Scott Bader.
Here.
Anna Benitez.
Here.
Susan Neely.
Here.
Jared Seitz.
Here.
Nathan Shelby.
Here.
Jocelyn Sievers, and we know she's not here this evening, and Simone Tarver.
Here.
Oh, Leah.
I'm also here.
Sorry. I thought I was a short name here. Thank you. I will mark you as here as well.
Did you get Angela too?
I did get Angela. I marked her as here. I just, I guess I didn't say it out loud. We're on a roll. And I know Angela was testing the meetings earlier, so I knew she was definitely going to be here. Got some notifications from Zoom. So thanks for doing that. So for my comments today, I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who showed up in support of Officer Rocha and his family. I know that many people on this call provided support in different ways. And I know that that's kind of still really heavy for the city of Everett. And so I just wanted to say something about it. It was a beautiful memorial service. There was thousands of people who attended. Couldn't even begin to count the numbers. Behind the badge was a really cool thing to see happen. I was really impressed by their work and how they came in and just made things a little bit easier for everyone. So that was really cool. So that is kind of an update I wanted to give or mention. And that's kind of all for kind of big city business. So I'm happy to move into item 1, which is nominations for chair. So how we did this 2 years ago, was we kind of went through everyone made nominations, and people can accept or decline that nomination. And then those who chose to accept the nomination gave a little spiel or why they'd be qualified or why they'd want to do it, why they'd be good at it. And then we did a vote, which I'm going to do through Zoom, and then I'll produce the results. So hopefully my poll will let me do this, and we might have to take a quick break so I can get it all formatted out once we have our nominations. So just wanted to let you know that. And then we'll go through a quick districting master search update and see if any of you have anything to provide, and then a quick timeline review, and then that's it for today. So it should be fairly quick. Scott, you're smiling. I like it. Okay. So who would like to make a nomination or talk about maybe why they would like to be nominated if we don't have somebody in mind?
I'd like to nominate Nathan Shelby. He's done a good job at the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee as chair. So if he's willing to consider doing it, I'd like to throw his name out there.
Well, thanks, Scott. Sure.
And I'd like to nominate Leah. I feel like so far in this process, I feel like she's had such great energy and is such an inquisitive person and has such a, like, her natural curiosity really comes through even in just these short few meetings. And I think that those are really great characteristics for someone to chair something like this.
Thank you. That's unexpected, but thank you. I accept.
I'll second Leah.
Oh, thank you, Angela.
And do we have a second for Nathan as well?
I'll second Nathan.
Is there any other nominations or anyone who would like to talk about why they might be a good fit and see if they get a nomination? Or are we comfortable to move on? Great. So I am going to create this poll. And in the meantime, I'd love to have first Nathan and Leah just kind of give your credentials, talk about yourself, why you'd want to do this, why you'd be good at it, just maybe. And if I could ask Simone to please be a timer so I could set up the voting process. And each person is 2 minutes fair, we think. Short and sweet. Everyone on this call has been super, super great to work with. So I think all of you would be a great chair. So thanks for the nominations. And we'll start with Nathan. Simone, let him know when you're ready to go, and I'll get the voting poll set up.
Perfect. Go ahead, Nathan.
Sure. So thank you for the nomination. I would be happy to chair the committee if selected to do so. What I bring is the experience running the Animal Shelter Advisory Board as the chair there, and the process that is involved in running a public commission type environment. So very similar Robert's Rules of Order type thing. If you're a union member somewhere, sometimes they do something similar as well. Happy to do it. Happy to step aside and let somebody else do it. It's not a deal breaker, obviously, either way. So yeah, that's what I would bring to it. Make it very quick, less than 30 seconds.
Perfect. Leah?
I'm with Nathan on this short and sweet, and I feel the same way. I'm familiar with the Robert's Rules of Order. I think I am fully capable of chairing the committee. I think that one of the things that drew me to being on the commission in the first place is what I have to say about data. I'm a data and financial analyst. Data is what I've done for the past 15 years, and I want to bring this skill set home. Data doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about this commission. It doesn't care about our city, and that's our job. And I would be honored to chair the commission and working with really ambiguous data to make some different decisions for our city. So I'd be honored. Also, I'm here if Nathan takes it. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you both. 1 minute.
Okay, so I am ready, and there should be an option to vote anonymously that I created. And so if you don't have that option, please let me know, and I can recreate it if I did something wrong. So. So looks like Leah is our new chair. So thank you, Leah. Thank you, Nathan, for being a contender. Really appreciate both of you. I have a photo of this as well, which I'll add to the minutes so that we can see that it was a transparent process. So with that, I think, Leah, you and I can meet maybe a week or so before our next meeting, and you can help me with agendas or things like that if I have questions on what can go, what we should discuss, what we shouldn't discuss, maybe how you'd like things formatted if things come through weird, stuff like that, just to get an opinion from someone who has to look at the material. So that will be great. And then when we have a districting master, you can work with them, and hopefully, or I know Simone would also be a resource to you as she chaired our districting commission. So if you have any questions or anything, I know she would be happy to meet with you as well, but it shouldn't be too rigorous, just maybe an extra 45 minutes a month to just make sure everything is going how we need. And then we decided to go with different rules of order when we did this process before, other than Roberts. It was kind of a washed down version. It was called Mary's Rules, I think. Is that right, Simone? And Margaret's Rules. It was just a less formal process, and I can send those to you as well. And then you all can decide, of course, what you want to do. I'm not wedded to anything, but there are a couple other options out there that make it a little better, I think, a little more modern to participate, but still along the same lines of, official votes and things like that. So we can review that together. I sent out the redistricting master call for bids. Oh, Simone.
I was going to say, before we move ahead, last year we did a vice chair too, and it came in handy for times if like the chair needs to be out to have a vice chair. And I don't know if we want to go through a whole voting process for it, but if I can just make a motion, I would move to have Nathan Shelby be our vice chair.
I would second that. That would be great. I think that's a great idea.
Who's second? Leah, was that you?
Yes, that was me.
Great. So all in favor of Leah as chair and Nathan as vice chair, please either raise your hand or say aye. And if you're not in favor, then I'll ask that next. So all in favor? Great. Looks like we have a full majority there. So that's great. Thank you for that, Simone. Great suggestion. So we haven't received any responses to our call for bids for redistricting master yet, but I do know that Tony, our districting master, was going to apply. He let me know that he had some deadlines coming up and would apply pretty close to the final hour, but I haven't heard back from the other two selections or other two options that I found that I sent them to. And I was wondering if any of you had done any research and found anyone else that I should add to that list and proactively solicit resumes or information from. Ooh, and I forgot to approve the minutes. So can we go back to that?
A motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Was that you, Jared?
Nathan.
Thank you. Hard to type and see all of you at the same time. All in favor? Great, thank you. So have you guys found any luck, or when you did your research, did it kind of pull up those two options and then our third? I sent it to I sent a request out to the company that did the county's redistricting. I sent it to the company who did Seattle's, and then I sent it to the company that did ours. And I haven't been able to find another good option. So in the next week or so, if something does come up, please send it to me and I can get that out to them as well, so that we have hopefully 2 bids would be great. So we have at least some things to compare to. So I'd love to get 2
Just for the sake of maybe having more, did you reach out to the other two that we interviewed last year? That were the ones we end up not going with? There was like a guy and
I did not, and I can. I didn't send to the gentleman that came from Western Washington University because I didn't see him on the like roster for them anymore, but I believe I have his email address, so I could at least send it out and see what I got back. And I believe that those two were wanting to volunteer to do it too, right? So that was kind of an interesting like side by side to see what people would be willing to volunteer to do. One kind of tricky thing with the volunteers is we did at least 2 years ago, the commission decided they preferred the districting master to be at all of the community meetings, which is 7 in the summer, which I believe the 2 volunteer options that we had, Simone, weren't willing to do, but they were willing to do the numbers and draw the lines and that kind of thing, but they didn't want to do community back and forth. Is that what you remember too?
yeah, and then we talked about, since they were volunteers, then potentially we could like hire a consultant to help more with that aspect, since we wouldn't really be spending money on the districting master. But we ended up going with Tony, who was able to be there for all of those and do a great job. So it worked out.
Thank you. So I also sent out some interview questions. Did you have edits or suggestions? I kind of just threw those, or not threw them. I took what we did a couple years ago and updated them a bit. So I'm, of course, open to edits and suggestions that you all have.
I just had the suggestion, I shared this with you, Nicole, wanting to know, what, how much work the applicants might have. Of course, may not matter since we have so few applicants, it appears, but just worried that given the time when there might be so many redistrictions going on that that there might, one person might be overloaded and have so many that we wouldn't get their time. But that might be an irrelevant question at this point, given how few little interest we have anyway.
I think we could just ask, I could provide a draft of like a time commitment, like all the 7 meetings and then our meetings. And we could ask the question, like, are you able to successfully do all of this that we're putting in front of you? Do you think that fits what you want to do, Scott?
Yeah, I think so. I just, I think if we had a bunch of applicants, I'd be more interested in pushing this question a little harder. If one person was doing, 20 other redistrictings at the same time and another one was just doing 2 or 3. But given the lack of applicants, I think what you're asking essentially gets to that point. So.
And then I wonder if we want to talk about the cracking and packing question, just because I think with redistricting, that's less of an issue, but curious what you all think about that one.
That was actually one of my questions for you, is like, what was the intention with that question on a project like this? Has it come up before? Was it a part of the previous discussions? I really didn't see any evidence of that. So I just was going to get a little bit curious about that with you. Why did you want to include that question?
So that came from a specific commissioner who had experience in a southern state where there was gerrymandering that happened. And so we just wanted to call that out as, since we're drawing the lines for the first time, it was important to them to specifically intentionally ask that question. Then, which I think gerrymandering and cracking and packing is the same. Cracking districts or packing them, not keeping commonalities and things like that in in mind, but kind of based on what you'd prefer to happen politically and not what you think is good for the neighborhoods and community. But since we have the lines, it might not be as relevant as a question, but we could leave it because it is still relevant.
I think from my perspective, when I hear you reflecting that the heart of the issue, I think is still relevant and important and something that I would really want to know. I just wonder if there's a different way to maybe phrase it. I'd have to think about it. I don't have a straight answer for you tonight. But I do think that the spirit of what's being asked in that question is important.
And I wanted to clarify for everyone what cracking and packing are, because I know that they sound like things you're doing to your back or something. They're weird words. So cracking and packing, they're techniques used to dilute minority voting strength. So cracking is when you fragment minority populations and disperse them among other districts to ensure that all districts are still majority white. Packing concentrates as many minorities as possible in a few districts to minimize the number of districts where the majority of voters are members of a minority. And so, yeah, it's gerrymandering and it's a big problem.
So I think I'll add Scott's question, and then it doesn't sound like there's a lot of concerns around the rest of them. And so if you do have a concern or you want to add a question, I can send out and we can do an email vote before we bring these to the next meeting, just so you guys can all review them. And but just make sure to only reply to me. So I want to remind everyone not to reply all. It's okay to say that you're not going to be at a meeting to the whole body. It's not okay to like necessarily reply to that or start a conversation. So I just want to make sure we're very careful, no back and forth. Nathan?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment on 11. Can we change the phrasing from willing to able?
Absolutely. I think
I mean,
that's
that would, I think, be clearer indication that we expect the districting master to actually attend all of those meetings rather than, show up if you feel like it kind of a thing.
yeah, makes it a little more specific. Any other?
And we might want to include, if we're going to say able to attend the community meetings either in person or virtually, because depending on where they end up being from, we should give them two options. And then about Scott's question, I think we could ask if they are willing and able to do what's laid out in the scope of work, because we lay out quite a bit in the scope of work of what we expect them to do. I mean, it's a page and a half almost.
I think Scott was kind of trying to get at like making sure that even if they were attending, they had time to do the work, like they weren't spread so thin. Is that right, Scott?
Correct. Yeah. So
I'll loop that in, just like, and I'll come up with another draft of these questions and I'll send them out to you all. And I'll leave the cracking and packing question in there if I can find a better way to word that, or I guess less less redistricting or districting way to word it, like kind of a more basic way to say that. That's clear to people who maybe don't know a lot about districting or redistricting or the lingo, could better understand it, because cracking and packing is pretty specific. And I think if I were watching this and I didn't run the districting commission before, I wouldn't know what that meant. And I imagine some of you don't either. So if there's no more comments on that, then I just wanted to hit that timeline review that I sent out in the email about when we would interview and our 90-day deadline And if we don't meet that deadline, then the council gets to appoint somebody. So hopefully we get responses to our requests, because if we don't, then we could lose the opportunity to appoint ourselves. Although I would say a few years ago when we did this, if that would have happened, I felt like the council was really open to appointing who the commission wanted based on their recommendation if we didn't meet that timeline. And I cannot, of course, can't speak for them, but I would think that the city council would similarly do the same thing this time as well. Because we did run up against, we got pretty close to the line last time because we didn't get a lot of responses then either. You'd think there'd be a bigger market for this kind of work. It's happening all over the place. So are there any questions on that timeline or comments or concerns? Angela, you're muted. I think you're addressing us.
Unmute. Just saw me. Anyway, so the redistricting master is going to have to get the data from city staff, and isn't that true? And is there a reason why city staff doesn't put that data together for us instead of bringing in an outsider?
So the data comes from the census, and we as a city do put that together, and actually city staff check the districting master's work just because our planning department's particularly awesome, I think. But it would be an option to have an internal person do it. We looked at that last time just as a backup plan. The issue with that is being employed, like everyone at the city of Everett is employed by the mayor essentially, because so you're employed by an elected official. And so some people prefer to have a outside consultant do it so they can feel comfortable with that. Whereas others are comfortable with city staff doing it because we have a body of community members reviewing that work and approving that work and understanding that work and things like that. So I think that's just a conversation for this group to have. And then it would also be a capacity issue. So over the last few years, as all of you know, we've really leaned out staff. And so it would be like if Erica, who's our GSI guru, she's amazing, could do it and wanted to, then she would be an option. But if she doesn't have capacity, then she'd, either have to have it assigned to her by someone who said it would be a priority or wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, wouldn't that be a better option than just if we get down to the wire and can't find a good candidate and feel like we have to just grab anybody? Wouldn't it be a better option to have staff do it?
I could absolutely ask if that's, I think we open it. You guys can discuss pros and cons of that. I think that's a great conversation to have. And then I can check in or not and figure out where we go from there. So I think just open it up.
Nicole, last time it appeared that the district master actually came with his own tools and body of data, which I assume was ultimately from the Census Bureau. But was that the case that at least folks who do this professionally appeared to have that data? Yeah,
and he had if you go on our districting site now and look up your district, that site he created for us, and he, there are a few more bells and whistles, I think, that came with Tony specifically, but we had candidates that didn't have that kind of stuff that our city staff potentially would have had to put together anyways, but they wouldn't have facilitated and presented the information the same way that Tony did, or the people who are going to volunteer for it would. So that would have been a partnership. Whereas I think our city staff could do something similar with our programs that we have, but I would have to double check in with Erica to make sure. But the map that she created with the district lines, she does if we what's it called when you go from unincorporated to incorporated? Pull like,
Annexation.
yeah, if we annex areas, she does that work and things like that. So I think she'd be more than capable of doing it. It's just, if you guys want to look into that, see if it's an option.
I think it might be a little more challenging to not have a districting master that has experience serving as a districting master, because it is a pretty labor intensive process to not just get the data, because getting the data isn't so much the challenge, it's making it so that we can actually look at that data and understand what it's saying, and have those opportunities to kind of do our own processing of it. I think also it could be a little challenging with, you know, having someone this be their very first time. Fortunately, it'd be a redistricting, so it wouldn't be quite the same as what we did last time, but I could see it being a little bit challenging just from that perspective of, yeah, districting master does quite a bit, and I think it would put a lot more work on the commission if we had to start over with someone who had never done this before.
I think what I'm thinking now is it depends, right? It depends on if we can get a couple of viable candidates from the outside. And I think that I would want to compare if there is someone within the city that is willing to do it, even if they are new. I would be interested in, I mean, if it came to interviews with both, I would be open to interviewing both. And also, I think it depends. Like, can we draw in a couple of people who are really specialized in this? I know from my own experience in data analysis, I'm great with the types of data and financial analysis that I've worked with. I understand the complexity of different data projects, and this is unique. Census data is its own bailiwick, and what we're asking the census data to do to be able to make decisions is, this is not an easy necessarily data project. So yeah, there's specific software and tools that you have to be able to use. So I would be very curious the decisions we would need to make to look in-house if we weren't able to get bids from the outside.
So sounds like we're interested to at least explore what that could look like. So I will ask Erica if it's even a possibility, and maybe have her put something, if it is a possibility, then have her put something, or whoever on their team would do that, in writing that might just kind of explain what it could look like, and if, you know, the tools that they have, or something like that, just so if it comes down to it and we need to pull that card, we know actually staff can't do it, or they can, and this is what it could look like, and then we can go from there. So at least we kind of have something on the back burner. Is everyone comfortable with that, or is there?
Yes.
Could we have them basically do not the full RFP process, but answer the same questions that we would have the other people answer, just so that we could compare it more evenly?
I will ask. I'm gonna be honest, I'd be a little hesitant to have a staff member fill out that whole RFP if we're not gonna
No,
consider
not
them.
the whole thing, but just the questions, like
the
the interview, or just like not all of it, but just kind of the critical questions from within there.
And then if we do need to look at staff and you wanted them to fill that out, I think that totally would make sense, so that you had all the information and you could compare. But if it ends up not being an option, then I don't want to waste anyone's. I don't want to waste anyone's time. I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to be the bad guy.
Well, I mean, and we're also looking for a team player, right? Like, we're looking for somebody who wants to fully be integrated in this process. This is something that, I mean, I'm making an assumption, but I know I can't do it. And no one on our commission has said, yeah, I can totally do that. This is why we need a person, and they need to be on our team. So if they are in-house, like like, I want them to also want to do this project too, which is why, yes, if we do get to that point, they think that this is feasible, I at least would want them to fill out the whole document.
I think I have a good starting place, and hopefully we get a few options so you guys can compare. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add about in-house or not in-house staff or people doing this project before we move on? Great. I think I have my next steps. So we've got interview and timeline. You didn't have any questions there. So I don't have any other things that I need to get through. I'm excited to have a chair and a vice chair. And when those RFPs come through, I'll send them out to you so that you have as much time as I have to review them. I'll get them out to you guys immediately. Is there any other items of business or anything that any of you want to bring up, Leah?
Yep. So I do have a question, and it's actually about, so we received a letter from a community member. Sometimes I see email traffic passing through about decision making. When we receive input from the community as a commission, how do we acknowledge that? Acknowledge that, yes, we read these words, this is what you're saying, and ask, actually, like the Everett districts now had an ask. They asked to provide a physical tour. What happens with that? What do we do?
That's a great question. So it would be my recommendation that whoever's running the meeting, so a chair or vice chair, calls out those and confirms that you'd received them maybe at the beginning of the meeting. You guys did vote not to take comment at the meetings, but I do think that acknowledging that you've received comments just lets people know that, okay, it's kind of like confirming that you received my email. Sometimes that's nice. And so we can do that. And then if things come through with a specific ask, I think we can bring those up at the meeting and discuss them. Just because we're not taking anything but written comment doesn't forbid you as a commission to discuss those written comments. And if you want to act on them or if you don't, but there's no specific process outlined, but that's what I would suggest. And I'll add to add a community comment section to the agenda so that when you get those, you have a place to just say, we received 3 written comments and I just wanted to confirm that, or let the community know we'd received these. Add community section to the agenda. Does anyone else have any suggestions or comments about community comment?
Okay, do you think that if you, this iPhone is terrible for doing this, but do you think that if you put, am I okay here or am I still muted? Okay, so do you think if you put community comments down there, when the public pulls up that agenda prior to the meeting, do you think that they're going to assume that that means that they can make comments?
I typed it out as add community or add recognition of written community comment.
Okay, so it's not, okay. All right, so they're not going to mistake it when they see it and go, okay, let me get my stuff ready so I can make a comment here at this meeting.
And I could publish that on the agenda too, that just at this time, the commission is not accepting community comments at meetings, but please send written comment here. And we're always, and people can call me and I'll type up their comment too if people have accessibility issues. It's not a problem for me to do that. It's not very many, so I'm happy to help out people that might not have computers or feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I think that would be better than
Great. So that's all that I have. Anything else? Okay. So thank you
Good.
everyone for coming. I won't hold you hostage. Just, hope and put good vibes into the air that we get responses on our call for bid. And if you find anyone that you want me to send this out to, please just send me an email and I'll get it out immediately, because I do want to, I really hope we end up with 2.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leah and Nathan. We'll talk very soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.